In July 2024, we infiltrated and installed multiple cameras in a small, local halal slaughterhouse in Old Arley, near Birmingham. I made a non-graphic version of this story, where we explored contradicting views of local residents, accusations of discrimination, and secretly recorded a lengthy conversation with the owner of the slaughterhouse, in which he made some bold, damning claims.
I can guarantee 100% there's nothing bad happening to you.
In this uncensored version, I'm going to show you exactly what he was trying to hide, behind the slaughterhouse walls.
So what do you do to make sure the animals are not being caused extreme suffering?
Well, I'm the animal welfare officer for the site.
You're the animal welfare officer, and what do you do to make sure the animals aren't being caused extreme suffering?
Well, we follow the FSA guidelines, we do everything that we can.
My first camera was pointed into the holding area, so we were able to capture how workers move sheep from the holding area to the pre-kill room. Throwing and shoving was seen frequently, as well as dragging sheep by their legs, or even by their necks. Many sheep slip over on the concrete floor, something this worker appears to find funny. Many sheep try to escape the loading area. Which often resulted in them being trapped between doors. Pulled by their tail and thrown against the metal barriers. This sheep circles anxiously as the sheep ahead of them are fed into the conveyor system. This individual jumps and headbutts the herder, who goes on to crush them under his knee, as if to punish them. We recorded many instances of sheep being lifted off their feet and dropped on their head as workers fight to get them into the conveyor loading room. We also recorded sheep being kicked and hit. This sheep's horn is broken and bloody after the ordeal. Once trapped inside the conveyor loading room, sheep are forcefully moved forward so they can be fed into the conveyor system. It's here that the sheep are made to wait their turn behind a sliding door to be forced into the restrainer conveyor system, which slowly delivers them to the waiting slaughterman.
It's a non-stun facility here?
It's a non-stun facility.
Non-stun,
Yeah.
traditional halal method here, right? So the animals don't see each other be slaughtered?
No.
Contrary to what the owner told me, here we see him carrying what appears to be a sick or injured sheep and dropping them into the conveyor where they have a clear view of the slaughter taking place in front of them. In fact, all the animals we filmed here could see the horrifying fate that awaited them ahead. Frightened sheep are often seen trying to retreat and run back to the holding area, but they are stopped by the worker. Some sheep are able to escape by jumping over the metal barriers. But there's nowhere to run. And eventually, they're thrown back into the conveyor. On one day, a herd of what appears to be spent dairy goats are led into the holding pen. They appear thin and emaciated, possibly from years of constant milking. After a life of exploitation, this is their final destination. They experience similar rough treatment to the sheep. But while sheep are known to remain quiet when in fear and pain, goats are more likely to vocalise. Listen to what these workers say as this terrified goat appears to beg for mercy. But their begs for mercy were in vain.
The animals are not suffering for a prolonged period of time from the cut.
Our footage revealed hundreds and hundreds of sheep and goats dying slow, painful, terrifying deaths. Panicking and thrashing as they bleed out, lifting their heads. Gasping for air. Some vomit from the hole in their neck, while others thrash after being removed from the conveyor. Some even flip onto their backs after being cut. This showed not only an inadequate restraint system, but also that sheep are in such pain and distress that they pull away hard enough to fall on their backs.
We've got cameras all over the facility, inside and outside.
On the kill floor there's cameras?
There's kill floor, on the kill floor.
Inside the slaughterhouse you're saying there's CCTV, and who monitors them?
I do.
You monitor them?
Yes.
So if anything's going wrong, that's on you?
Yes.
We also recorded numerous instances of sheep having their throat cut before escaping their restraints and running around the slaughterhouse. This sheep also escapes the restraints, but is caught by the worker. He sticks his hand in the wound to determine whether it was a clean cut, which causes needless further suffering. The tail is wagging, another indicator of pain. The sheep instantly reacts to the wound being touched, a highly reliable sign of consciousness. After some discussion, and almost 45 seconds since the cut was first made, the workers finally decided that they should administer the bolt gun. Here's another horrifying example of a botched cut. The sheep escapes the conveyor and is then bolt gunned and left to bleed out on the slaughterhouse floor.
Halal kosher, you can slash their throat without them being stunned first, right? Okay. And you don't think that that causes extreme amounts of suffering over the stunning? Because what do you do if there's a botched kill?
An ineffective cut would, in theory, mean that the animal's suffering, which is why you stun it straight away.
And how often does that happen?
Not very often. If there's the right one that's doing the cutting, it very
rare.
Very rare.
Okay. And very rare here because you're the animal welfare officer, right? Okay.
Botched kills were in fact not rare at all. We witnessed sheep suffering with a slashed throat, in some cases for up to 1 minute, before they were finally stunned with the bolt gun. Another common sight was thrashing sheep falling from their shackles and landing hard on the slaughterhouse floor. On a couple of occasions, a sheep's horn would become stuck in the metal bench, and they'd carry it with them into the dismemberment area, where our next camera was set up. To remove the bench, a worker rips the sheep's horn off, and then plays it like an instrument as a depraved joke, all while the same sheep thrashes on the shackle behind him.
So you're the owner, you're the animal welfare officer. A Muslim might be putting a lot of trust in you. They wouldn't expect there to be any egregious suffering of the animals because it's a bit of a different thing, isn't it? You're answering to your entire religion and people who are trusting you and stuff like that. So that's why you have an extra responsibility to not be lying to people as well, yeah? Yeah.
At some point, this sheep sustained an injury to their leg. We get a look at the wound as they go past, and as you can see, their bone appears to be exposed. One of the most shocking discoveries of this investigation was the amount of sheep who were sent to be dismembered whilst likely still conscious. We showed a sample of our footage to Jenny Mace, an associate lecturer in animal welfare and ethics, and they were able to identify several factors that dramatically increased the likelihood that many of the hoisted and moving sheep were conscious. The lack of any systemic checks by slaughterhouse staff for consciousness prior to moving the sheep from the restrainer, nor prior to hoisting them, such as full loss of muscle tone, rhythmic breathing, and blinking reflexes in response to eyes being touched. The movement of sheep from the restrainer prior to the minimum legal 20-second time period. That was only 8 seconds. The EFSA, one of the most authoritative and independent sources of animal welfare science, denotes the full loss of muscle tone as an indicator of loss of consciousness in sheep undergoing non-stun slaughter. Thus, the sheep should not be showing any signs of movement before being moved and hoisted, but rather be limp and floppy. Foot stomping / kicking is also a sign of pain, along with tail wagging, all of which are arguably present. The sheep move from the restrainer while still moving, and the hoisted and moving sheep are likely indicating pain, rather than exhibiting unconscious spasms.
So they're not still moving or any signs of life. How do they check to see if there's signs of life in the animal? They do this?
Yeah.
Under the eye?
Yeah.
Yeah? And everyone's appropriately trained in here?
Yes.
And of the thousands of sheep we saw killed here, we only documented around 10 examples of the eye response check being used to check if sheep were unconscious. The report noted that even with such systematic checks in place, there is still a risk that a sheep could regain consciousness. And we saw evidence of this when hanging sheep who appear to be unconscious would suddenly start moving and raise their heads, a likely indicator of consciousness, and that workers should constantly monitor for any signs of consciousness and be available with a stun gun. Again, here there was no eye reflex test or stunning performed. Shockingly, some of the sheep were still moving and tail wagging for up to 4.5 minutes post-cut. So, the expert report suggests that at least some of these animals may be conscious as their tails and legs are cut off, as they're skinned, and finally, as they're decapitated. The slaughterhouse clearly favours efficiency over the suffering of these sheep in their final moments.
You monitor the CCTV. Would you give us some CCTV footage to look at? Why not?
I don't know what is the need. Again, it comes down to, first things first, you're never going to agree with what we do. That's the first thing. Second thing is, slaughtering, generally speaking, it's not everybody can, so, you know, even meat eaters who are carnivorous, they don't mind seeing it in a packet, but they won't like to see the slaughtering process.
Throughout our time watching the workers, we captured many instances of them making vulgar jokes, including throwing body parts at each other, swinging corpses, and playing wolf sounds over the speakers, which may distress the sheep further. Heads were often left laying around as the workers worked around them, or thrown like basketballs into the bin.
So,
But if you've got nothing to hide, why don't you advertise the slaughter?
Because we have no obligation to you. We've got an obligation. We've got an obligation to the FSA, who's a government body who monitor things and make sure that things are done properly. So nothing ever happens on site unless there's an official veterinarian on site who also monitors CCTV. So there's CCTV available for the FSA. They can check whenever they like. So they've got that. But
so they can check whenever they like.
Yes.
And in fact, we did see what appears to be an FSA officer, but only on 5 occasions and for about 10 minutes each. They were only ever seen standing here, never on the kill floor or the dismemberment area, where they would actually have a much clearer view of what's taking place. Here, they can be seen watching a sheep be ineffectively cut, thrashing, being bolt gunned, and thrashing again. This headbanging is also a likely sign of consciousness. She then appears to tick some boxes and eventually leaves.
Now, what would you say to people who might think there's something horrible happening to the animals in here?
So there's not.
There's not. Where do you sell this meat to? Because obviously Muslims buy this meat from you. So if Muslims are wanting to buy your meat, they're putting a lot of trust in that the animals have been slaughtered the right way. Whether I believe it's right is a different question, but the right way based on... No, I'm not, of course, my agenda is clear. I'm not here for any other agenda other than the animals. You know, you've got your agenda too, which is to make money. That's why you're here.
Not really, no. That's not my agenda. My agenda is, as a Muslim, first thing, we're working in the halal trade, we're providing a service to the Muslim community, that's the second thing.
Okay.
And then the third thing is, I've been in this trade since I was a kid. I've been to a lot of big places, and I think I can do it better.
Okay. So
it's not financially better, but I think that a small facility means that, like you said, I've got a lot of responsibility and I do a lot of things on site is because it's a small site and I control everything. Because I can control everything. Big sites don't have that.
So you oversee everything and you can make sure that there's not bad things happening, right?
Exactly. And I would never let that happen. You know, I'd much rather shut the site than ever let anything bad happen. So like I said, it's...
Can you tell me that, guarantee me that 100%?
Yes.
Say it. I guarantee you that 100%. You know, that there's nothing bad happening here to the animals.
I can guarantee 100% there's nothing bad happening to the animals yet.
Overall, in just a 1 hour 46-minute sample of our footage, our expert Jenny Mace observed 31 problematic animal welfare indicators, as well as a list of illegal behaviours. Rough handling, such as pushing, shoving, throwing and pulling, is illegal. Hitting sheep with a door is illegal. Standing or kneeling on sheep is illegal. Moving sheep within 20 seconds of them being cut, and a lack of systematic checks for unconsciousness is illegal. Equipment and restraints that allow sheep to escape is illegal. Dismembering sheep who may not yet be unconscious or who are still alive is illegal.
As far as I'm concerned, animal welfare is at the top of the agenda. Halal, like I said, halal isn't just to say the prayer and do the slaughter. Halal is the whole concept.
You can't slaughter injured animals or, you know...
The whole concept. The animal welfare that comes before the slaughter itself is all part of the halal.
Part of the whole...
Not everybody understands from the Muslim community what halal actually means and it entails. There's a lot involved in that. And like I said, as part of that, animal welfare is a big thing in the halal slaughter.
To anyone who has watched this far, thank you for bearing witness. But please remember, animal suffering is not limited to non-stun slaughter. As our expert report notes, stun slaughter is far from a panacea in terms of animal welfare problems at slaughter. Both non-stun and stun slaughter are impractical for guaranteeing any acceptable level of animal welfare, especially at the rates animals are currently bred and killed at. It is arguably a false dichotomy to suggest the choice is between stun or non-stun slaughter. The choice is really between whether to kill an animal, or as many animals as society currently does, or not. Every sector of the meat, dairy and egg industries worldwide is rife with systemic animal cruelty. Therefore, the only truly effective way for everyone watching this to avoid supporting these abhorrent violations against animals is to live vegan.